Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Lately, I have been trying to get in touch with a very important guest, and finally, we made it happen. Today, I want to talk to Michaela Peterson. Hi, Michaela. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for bringing me on. Sorry it took so long to get this worked out. This year's been crazy.
I know you're busy, so it's completely understandable. I suffer from the same problems. Uh, it's great that we eventually did it, and I'm very happy to have you here. So, how are you doing? How is your wealth? How is your health? Not wealth.
Good, good. Things are good. I just relocated from Nashville to Miami, and I'm really enjoying Florida, even though it's ridiculously hot out right now. So things are better. I was quite sick this year with bronchitis from tree allergies in Nashville, which is part of the reason it took us so long to get connected because I kept losing my voice. So I'm feeling pretty good right now.
That's good to hear. That's very good to hear. How is your speaking of health, you had a whole thing going on this. You started a diet and a program and a company based on that, I believe. You ran with that for a while. How is that going? Are you continuing with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much stuck on that diet. That caused a bit of controversy. It's an all meat diet, so I just eat like beef, lamb, ruminant animals, and I'm pretty much stuck on the diet to treat my rheumatoid arthritis. So I had rheumatoid arthritis. I've had symptoms since I was 2, and it was extremely severe. I had my hip and ankle replaced when I was 17, so it wasn't like a couple of joints hurt. It was literally destroying my body. And I managed to put it into remission with this really extreme diet. And there are some theories about why it works, but I'm kind of stuck on it. And so I've been telling people about it, obviously. I don't have, I'm not making any money from it. Although, if I figure out a way, I most certainly will. I'm not opposed to making money, but I've just been telling people about it because it changed my life so dramatically that I felt I should. So I don't focus on that really. I focus on my podcast. But yes, I'm stuck on the diet currently. If I go off of it, my autoimmune disorder comes back.
I have been dealing with, I've dealt with an autoimmune disorder and also with, actually, I noticed your diet when I had major anxiety problems several years back. And just around that time, I saw your diet and you promoting it. And I saw things related to anxiety and that diet. So
Hmm.
I thought about maybe trying it because I was just looking for a way to manage things better. But in the end, I couldn't do it because I wasn't committed enough to just eat meat. But
Well, that's it's understandable. It's not like it's really tricky to get into. I used it for the arthritis, and but the really crippling illness I had was major depressive disorder, which was just like destroying my life. I had chronic fatigue as well, and so I actually started on a paleo diet. So I got rid of all the processed foods and grains and soy and dairy, and I just ate mostly like vegetables, meat, and fruit. And that made a massive difference to my depression before I went to just a meat diet. So if you're not feeling up to a meat diet, most people aren't, then even cutting grains and dairy and processed foods, sometimes that's enough to see a difference in mood.
well, there's different ways to achieve. I mean, I'm really happy that it works for you. I'm really happy that it makes great changes in your health. It's great to see people free themselves from such suffering. You don't know how hard it is until you experience it, and it's hard to explain to others
Yeah.
uh, who are not familiar with it. Coming to your podcast, you started a podcast where I believe you didn't focus on a specific topic, right? You just wanted to host interesting people, have all kinds of discussions with people that you are interested in who might share your views or not. How did that start?
Uh, it started, I guess I'd been on a number of podcasts talking about my experience with diet. And somebody reached out and said, you should start a podcast. And I thought, okay, why not? I like talking to people. And so I started it kind of to delve into more alternative health, I guess, theories. So I had a lot of practitioners on, like really out there practitioners for alternative health things, just to when if you're diagnosed with like an autoimmune disorder or some sort of problem, you kind of look everywhere for a solution. So I had a lot of those practitioners on, and then once I kind of got bored, honestly, of the health route, I had some people talk about politics, and then when I kind of got bored of that, I spoke with a lot of people who were successful business people to try and see how they'd become so successful. So what the pattern was amongst people who'd made a lot of money. I did that for a while, and then I started doing an opposing views series, where I talk to somebody on the right and somebody on the left, generally, or people with completely differing views on a contentious subject. And I'll ask them the same questions and then put those videos up. So I try and stay as neutral as I can, just to showcase how different opinions can be. That's been very interesting too.
What is your expectation from? I will come to that in a little bit more specifically, because that's actually one of the main reasons why I contacted you and asked to talk to you, because of one of those episodes. But what's your expectation from the opposing views series and podcast? Like, do you have this goal of simply being a moderator, or not even a moderator, just an interviewer who just asks questions and lets the others speak no matter what they want to say? Or are you trying to find a common ground? Is there a specific goal that you're going for?
So no, I think I've actually tried to stay as out of the conversation as possible. It's hard sometimes because sometimes there'll be a topic and I will clearly agree with one of the sides, and then it's difficult to stay neutral. Uh, and that's happened quite a few times, but I'm trying to stay out of it completely. I think the only way to make that kind of series successful is if I'm just there listening. If it turns into a debate, then I don't think it would be successful. So I guess my goal is to stay neutral and then let the audience decide after hearing people's opinions.
It would be kind of funny if you were in the middle and then you suddenly in the middle of it start arguing
Debating.
and fighting with one person.
It's tempting. It's definitely been tempting, but I'm trying to refrain myself.
About your you recently got married, right? Congratulations
Yes.
on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been following that. And has there also been a journey alongside with that of religious beliefs or anything like that? I heard that you
Yeah.
recently changed your beliefs or something like that.
Yeah. I guess I converted to Christianity in last August. Um, Pretty out of the blue, but not too out of the blue, I suppose. Like I didn't exactly have a Christian upbringing. Like we never went to church or anything, but my dad being Jordan Peterson, it was like I learned a lot about the biblical stories. And then a few years ago, my mom converted to Catholicism, after she had this absolutely like deadly, horrifying, awful cancer, and that just like tore my family apart. And she converted to Catholicism while she was in the hospital with that. Uh, yeah, and I think that watching her, like, I know not everyone, I mean, you obviously, I know not everyone has a good experience with religion, but for my mom, it helped her become a kinder person. And it was pretty dramatic. And so I kind of saw that. And at the time, I was dealing with taking care of my dad, doing primary care. He was really sick. And my life was just in shambles, and my family's life was in shambles. And things were so dramatic. We were dealing with, the media finding out about things. So it wasn't just having parents that are sick and having this family kind of strife because people are sick. It was also dealing with the media. And I was like, this is too much for any person to like understand. And so I think things were so surreal for a while that probably brought me closer to spirituality. And then for whatever reason, last August, I had an experience that just kind of tipped the scales into me deciding, okay, it makes more sense if God is real, which isn't something I had thought before. So
I
it's
see.
been an interesting year.
Yeah, I mean, you might think about me that I probably despise religion because I had a bad experience with it. But I've always thought, even yesterday, I had a conversation with my wife, a long one, which was about how, religion or rituals or specific, behaviors like meditation and things like that can just give you great comfort. It doesn't even have to be a ritual. It doesn't have to be meditation. Just the thought of believing in
Oh
something
yeah.
greater, trusting in something can make you feel much more comfortable. Can make your life better in a sense. And I appreciate that aspect very much. And I understand that people get a lot of comfort out of that. Sometimes I even feel like that's one aspect that I miss as an atheist about religion. But then there are also
Yeah.
other aspects.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, like I was always pretty skeptical. I don't think I was ever like pure atheist, but I was definitely agnostic. And and I always thought, oh well, it would be a lot easier if I just believed in something. Like it would just be a lot easier if I trusted in something, or I trusted even an afterlife. If I didn't have this fear, if I just had the belief, life would be easier. And so I had like a number of coincidental things happen and kind of synchronous experiences for a number of years, and things got weird enough that I was like, okay, I think it's God. And my life has improved since then, and that's good enough for me, really. So I've been reading the Bible and delving into that, and my life is better. So, and I think through, because of the chronic illness I had, and then watching my parents sick for a number of years, I think the fact that it's easier, and I'll take it. I'm not I'm not ready to fight back against something and make my life more difficult than it's already been.
Yeah, and I was very religious in my past, and right now the outlook that I have is, as long as people don't, harm others with their religion or in the name of their religion or by
Yeah,
using religion as a tool. It's
yeah,
I sympathize with people being religious, and it's completely fine with me if people want to. I'm saying it's fine with me as if I was an authority in deciding what people can live by. But I mean, I find it. I sympathize with it. Briefly
yeah.
said.
I get that. That's kind of where I was at before too. It's like just don't, not shove it down my throat, but kind of like don't shove it down my throat. And yeah, you shouldn't be out harming people because of what you believe. And if that's part of your religion, that's not good, right?
Mhm.
That shouldn't be part of your religion if it involves hurting other people or having an excuse to hurt other people.
Mhm. What about Jordan Peterson? I know people probably ask you about your father a lot. I want to make this more about you. But speaking of belief, I hear a lot of claims by people. People say, no, he's a Christian. No, he's not. He believes in God. No, he doesn't. He's just, believes in a kind of deity and stuff like that. In your esteem at the current stage, if you can even make such a judgment, uh, does he also believe in God, or is he also a Christian, or what is the latest?
So even me being his daughter, it's kind of difficult to tell. I think at the moment, I would say he believes in God. I think that him watching my mom convert to Catholicism and seeing the changes it made for her helped a lot. I think his experience over the last 6 or 7 years of just strange things happening, like his life, just regular university professor to like skyrocketing to fame, and then the controversy, all those strange things happening, and then him getting super ill, my mom getting super ill. I think all those experiences have led him to believing in God. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say he's a full blown Christian, um, but I don't know what's going to happen. He's definitely interested in talking about the psychological significance behind the biblical stories and why it's important. And he definitely believes that Christianity specifically is a good religion. But that's probably the best kind of answer I can give you. I wouldn't pinpoint it any more because I don't know any better than what I've just told you.
Well, I think that is good enough. I feel like if you wanted to describe, you could go on forever. But I think that's good enough for now. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
When it comes to choosing a religion, why are you not a Muslim? That
I
sounds very
think,
stupid, but
yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
no, no. I've actually been asked that before. Is like, why specifically Christianity? And I think, first of all, this was just last August, so I haven't delved around very much. But the reason that I've converted to Christianity specifically is because I've met a lot of, so a couple of things. When I found God, that's how I'm describing it. When I found God in August, it was kind of through my current husband. So I went to Austin, and there were like 4 parts of my life that were going really badly. And my dad was really sick. There were a couple of things at work that were unbelievably stressful. I was actually going through a divorce that had been going on for a very, very long time. And I wasn't depressed, like clinically depressed, like depression when you don't know what the cause is and you're just miserable. I wasn't like that. I was like, there are hard parts of my life and I'm sad. And he said, oh, well, you need God. And I thought, well, that's all fine and dandy. But I don't have that. Sounds good, but I don't have that. And I told him that. I was like, that sounds good, but I don't know how to get that. And I'd probably been looking because my mom had said the same thing when she converted. And I was like, well, I'm looking, but I don't have that. And he said, well, ask God to reveal himself to you. And so I went back home and prayed and was just like, if there's anything out there, say something. And the next day, those 4 parts of my life that were going in the wrong direction and had been going in the wrong direction for like years turned around. Like enough that I was like, that's enough for me. That was weird. It could have happened. It's not like it could have happened. There was a universe that could have happened, but it was very unlikely, and it happened today. And I woke up with a kind of a feeling of calm that I hadn't had before. And I was like, that's enough for me. And so I think Christianity specifically, partly because of my husband, partly because that's the religion I'm familiar with through my like parents and extended family, and partly because I think reading the Bible has resonated with me in a certain way. But that being said, I haven't read other texts, so I don't have that comparison. And then I guess the last reason would be I've met a lot of different families with different religions, and I feel like the people who practice Christianity have overwhelmingly been very solid, kind people with well-structured families. Most of the people I was around growing up had pretty fractured families, so either fighting or divorces, something like that. And I feel like if I look back over my life, the families that I realized were stable were the ones that were practicing Christianity. And so that's probably why.
How about your? I was just asking tongue in cheek, but to be serious for a second. In the recent past, you made some experiences with Islam. You talked to Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and then you also had an episode of Opposing Views where you talked to Ayaan Hirsi Ali and to a Muslim apologist.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, and with other experiences and confrontations that you've had so far, what is your impression of Islam? And do you think that it is a religion like Christianity, or that it is also good in some aspect? And I'm asking that as an ex-Muslim.
Well, I don't know enough about it, but when I did the Opposing Views episode, I asked the apologist, what's the difference between Christianity, or like what's the difference really between Islam and Christianity, and he basically said that Christianity is based on forgiveness. If somebody does something against you, you forgive them, and that was weak. And in Islam, that's not what you do, and they should be punished. And I was like, okay, well, if that's what Islam is, that's not what I believe. It's not, I don't believe that it's up to an individual to punish another individual. And I think that that's hard on both people. And I don't think that's the right way to live. So if that's what the religion's about, I don't agree with that. I have Islamic friends, and I mean, I get along with a whole bunch of them, but I would say, 1, I'm not very educated in the religion, and then 2, I know that specifically after that Opposing Views episode, I was upset afterwards, like quite upset, right? I talked to Ayaan, and I like her. Um, and I felt like the person who was opposing her was very mean in a way that scared me. So when I left the episode, I was frustrated and like a little bit scared. And I don't get scared that easily, but I was like, if that's what the religion is, and that's what a person who believes in that religion is like, that scares me. So that's not super positive. I do have Muslim friends that I quite like, that are very nice people, but specifically with that opposing views episode, it was scary.
I mean, the thing is, the person you talked to, I mean, Mohammed Hijab, the person that you talked to is also happens to be one of the top 3 Muslim apologists right now online, or top
Yeah,
5, top 3. He's like one of the most popular people. He's the representative of the Muslim youth online right now, and they
yeah,
vastly agree with him and applaud him and the things that he says. And I watched the whole episode. I even sat down and made a whole live reaction to it. And I saw your reactions at some points, and it looked like you felt really uncomfortable and you really wanted to jump in. And there was one point where you even where he went on a tangent on
yeah.
attacking her, and you said, "Okay, enough," and kind of stopped him. And there was a lot of stuff about. I believe you might have heard a lot of things about Islam and women. And then in that episode, you actually heard those things directly from a Muslim apologist. What's your idea
Yeah.
on that? Did you have like these things that are known as stereotypes before, and then you heard them from a Muslim apologist? And how did your ideas about Islam and women be, change after that?
Yeah, I think actually after that conversation, I was probably, you hear kind of right wing propaganda about Islam, and you're like, well, is that true? Who knows? And then you kind of hear more left wing people, and they're saying, oh, it's a freeing religion and women can do what they want, right? And it's like, okay, maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. It didn't seem like it was somewhere in the middle after that opposing views episode. It sounded pretty rough. It sounded pretty rough. So I think I was probably more convinced that if that religion, like just honestly, if that religion is the one that's spreading through Europe, we might be in for a bit of an issue, especially in regards to women's rights. And I can kind of like, if I try hard, I can kind of understand where Muhammad was coming from, because I think that there's some response to the left and their dislike of any type of stereotyping gender wise. So it's like, oh no, there's no differences between men and women, right? And I think I don't know this, but I think part of the reason he's so adamant in his views, I could be wrong, is because there's this thing he's fighting back, which is this ideology that's saying men and women are exactly the same. And I think that ideology is kind of evil. So I can kind of understand where he's coming from, but I think if we go the route that he was suggesting, then we're going back, I don't know how many hundreds of years, in a direction where women aren't going to have any rights, under the guise that it's better for them and society that way. And that's not something I agree with at all, obviously.
You have conservative values. Your father is known to have conservative values that are, however, based on a Western liberal understanding
Mm-hmm.
of society. And I mean, you feel comfortable and happy as a free woman who can make her own choices and her own life decisions and all of that. Jordan Peterson is very big on individualism, as I've seen in the past. And when it comes to Islam doesn't have, I said this quite recently, but for example, when it comes to the abortion debate, some Christians get this false impression that their views and their concerns for society are actually very much in alignment with Islam and Muslims and their concerns for society. But I would say that the Islamic ideal society is far more distant from the Western conservative or Christian conservative ideal than Western progressivism is, for example. And progressives and conservatives are actually, if you look at it from a broader angle, very close to each other, whereas the Islamic perspective is completely opposed to both of them.
Interesting.
Muslims might say, we care about family values. Family values are being destroyed right now. We want to uphold family values, but their family values are not really the family values that you speak of. You call them family values, but you believe in, a man and a woman and children and certain gender roles to a certain extent. The Islamic position, however, is that it's okay or ideal for one man to be the patriarch who has multiple wives, and then also dependent slaves or servants that can also be used for sex, which these Muslim apologists believe in, by the way, and that a man can beat his wife to regulate her and things like these. And the woman doesn't have any freedom for herself at all. She must be completely obedient to her husband in every aspect and cannot go. I mean, you couldn't be sitting here and having this conversation with me under an ideal Islamic system. So
Yeah,
there's
I
a
felt that.
contrast. Yeah.
I felt that, I think, with the opposing views with Muhammad, because I don't think he was looking at me the entire time. I think he was looking off, so he wasn't looking at me, and I was like, like this is real. This is like I'm taught like he wasn't talking to me, right? He was doing the opposing views so the video could go out, right? So he could get views. So I noticed that during the opposing views too. I was like, he definitely didn't look at me the entire time. Why do you think it's spreading so rapidly in Europe, and why do you think people who are more progressive think that it's okay? Is it just complete lack of understanding?
It's not really spreading in that many people are accepting Islam or anything like that. That's usually a misconception. It's spreading. And Pew Research made a study on this quite a few years ago, where they pointed out that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world at the moment, but 99.7% of the growth, or 99.3, I don't know if I remember the number correctly, but a very small difference. 99.7% of the growth is due to birth rates and
Yeah,
young
okay.
age, whereas only a tiny amount is due to conversions. And
Wow.
obviously there's a lot of moving into the Western world from the Muslim world, because the Muslim world is not an ideal place to live. And I know this from my own experience as well. I was born in Germany and grew up there, and was surrounded by many other Muslim families from different countries who came there because life is better in the West. And when it comes to the whole progressives defending Islam, I think it's just this whole naive idea of being compassionate and protecting the minorities. And it could be, I mean, it looks like they have good intentions. They think right-wingers are bigoted and hateful and prejudiced, so they want to stand up and protect the minorities, but they don't even think much further. They don't know what Islam is. They don't consider the fact that Islam is not a minority in most of the world, and that it has considerable power in the Islamic world, and that it is responsible for oppressions and so on. The average progressive doesn't know that in a dozen Muslim countries, it is illegal to leave Islam and punishable with prison, fines, death, and more, for example. I don't know if you are even aware of this. I mean, many people who are not on that side are not aware of that. But in multiple countries, in over 10 countries, leaving Islam is forbidden, and in some of them it is punishable by death. That is the
That's crazy.
Islamicizing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That doesn't surprise me, but like I said, I'm not well versed enough in this. Plus there's different, like, you talk to different people and then they'll say different things. And then because I can't read the original text, I don't know how I'm supposed to get the answers. And so if I'm like, even like I worked my way through part of the Quran when I was in just the first couple years of university. And even that was like, well, it's not in the right language, so you didn't actually read it. It's like, well, how am I even supposed to have a conversation? It's like, well, you're not really.
Well, I wanted to make a surprise and present something to you so that you don't have to just depend on me telling you everything, because I could be, I could have personal biases and all that. So I thought I handpicked 5 moments, 5 instances, or 5 Muslim apologists and scholars. And I just wonder what your reaction to those would be, just so you don't hear it all from me, but from
Okay,
them.
okay. Let's do it.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
This is a part of our religion. There's a reason to it. Yeah? There's a reason why there's a capital punishment. Because people like you, little weaklings who leave their religion and cause corruption in the land by spreading it, the capital punishment in Islamic law would be applied to you. We have no doubt. And we're proud of that. Yes? And we, you know what? We'll be watching.
Oh my gosh. That's terrifying. Yeah, okay. That's kind of after I did the opposing views too. Oh, here's the other crazy thing that happened. When my dad actually talked to Ayan on his channel, and that was, I think, the first. He had some actual Islamic scholars on after that, but he talked to Ayan first. I actually got people calling my phone number, demanding to either talk to me or my dad about the episode, insulting me. And I this was when my dad was still kind of sick, and there was one guy, I don't know how he got my phone number, and he was angry, like angry. And I can remember being like, first, how dare you call me at home? You have no idea who I am. You don't know what my views are. Like, you're yelling at somebody on the internet's daughter for a video her dad put out. How does that make you feel? And eventually he was like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, I shouldn't have done that. It's like, yeah, but like, you wound yourself up and call me at home. Like, that's crazy. That is definitely a concerning clip. And he has 800,000 subs.
Yeah, 800,000 subs.
Yeah.
He's the most popular Muslim YouTuber, and that video was, by the way, addressed at me. So he's talking to me in that video.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
he's basically saying people like me, little weaklings who leave their religion and then spread corruption, meaning we talk about it, that we should be executed, and that he would be, that Muslims like him, his words, would be proudly watching. And
Yeah, see, I can't imagine that coming. Like, there aren't Christians online that I'm aware of with that kind of rhetoric. I'm just, I might not be aware of them, but I don't think that really exists in Christianity specifically.
yeah. Okay, next one. Oh, and the next one is going to be a screenshot. I love how so many of these Islamophobes don't have the ability to represent me fairly by calling this child rape. How is it child rape when there is parental consent?
See, that's crazy, but that's part of the reason that's crazy, other than what he's talking about, is because he actually doesn't understand, right? He's actually like, how is it child rape if there's parental consent? It's like, how can you ask that question? But he actually doesn't understand, which is even scarier.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's like it doesn't even make sense to him. It's like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
parents consented to it, so what are you talking about? How is
Yeah,
this
why would I
child?
be in trouble if the parents consented? Yeah, whoa.
And the context of this was, we were talking about Prophet Muhammad, who, according to the Islamically authentic texts, married one of his wives, Aisha, when she was 6 years old, and consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old, meaning he took her to bed when she was 9, and he was in his 50s. And people call this child rape nowadays. And he's
Yeah.
basically saying, how is this child rape when the parents consented to it?
Yeah, wild. I don't think people understand, and I don't think I understood exactly until I started traveling, and I went to some different cultures where people are way different. Like, if you go to the UK, people are still kind of the same, and even if you go to parts of Western Europe, people are still kind of the same. If you go over to Eastern Europe, people start getting different, and I think it wasn't until I did some traveling in Eastern Europe, and went to Dubai, that I experienced, and more really, I think, in Eastern Europe, different beliefs down to somebody's core. I think it's hard for Westerners who haven't traveled to to understand somebody can think completely differently.
Unacceptably differently. Sorry, I was muted. We have three more clips. Very interesting.
Both Islam and human rights are in 100% agreement that women are accountable if they break the law. And that means Islam and human rights are in 100% agreement that women should be beaten. We only differ on who should do the beating. You say...
That was good. That was good.
Do you understand the logic? It's like
that's a little bit, yeah. He didn't take a logic. That's not how logic works. Therefore, women can be beaten. Okay, that was a bit of a stretch.
yeah. So under human rights, there are laws, and people
Yeah.
are punished by laws. So therefore, both of them agree that women should be beaten. So what's the problem?
That was a good one. That's a good one, and like I'm probably more prone to laugh at these things, but but it's actually scary. Like that's actually scary. It's funny for me to laugh at it now here when everything is fine, but like if that kind of way of thinking, if suddenly that's how all your neighbors think, then it's scary, right?
I mean, I think it's a completely normal reaction to react to something that is shocking and absurd like this with laughter in the moment. But then when you look at the reality of things, and what he said here is not just something that some guy online argues. It is a reality in much of the Muslim world. That there was a survey from a few years back from Afghanistan where over 90% of women or over 80% of women agree that men have the right to beat them for various reasons, including if they accidentally burn the food or leave the house without asking for permission. And this is a reality. I mean, in a Western society, this is completely absurd. But in that world, even women are indoctrinated into believing that because it comes directly from the religion itself. It is the Quran which says in chapter 4, verse 34, that that women are supposed to be obedient to their husbands, and if they don't obey, then a man may warn the woman, then separate beds, and finally beat them. And it's like Muslims are authorized by their religious holy book itself to do that. Who are we to speak?
Yeah. Do you think that the women answering that study answered it because that is what they believe? Or do you think they answered it because, out of concern that if they answered any other way, they'd be beaten?
What a paradox, right? I mean, it's a thing that I thought about as well. I don't know. I still think it's hard to know. It's hard to
Yeah.
guess. It's hard to guess. And I would say that there are probably some of those women probably don't really believe that, but they fear for reactions, which is why they give a certain answer. Or there are some who genuinely believe, well, this is the right thing. I might not like it, but this is how it is. I mean, I had if I may share a life experience from myself, I lived in Turkey for a while. After I grew up in Germany, I moved to Turkey, lived there for a while, and I had a roommate, and he had a girlfriend, which is and like this is a very secular environment and relationship. But in the end, both of those people are Muslims and they have Muslim values. So I'm at that point an atheist already. I'm like mildly outspoken, not too much, because I don't want to put myself in danger, even in Turkey. But one day she asks me, so why are you not a Muslim? Why don't you believe anymore? And I said, for different reasons. And she said something like, oh, don't you think life with Islam is much better? I said, no, I don't think so. And she said, well, why? And I was like, what, do you really want me to show you? Yeah, sure. So I brought the Quran and opened that verse and said, please read and tell me what it says. And she read it, and she confirms to me that it says that men are allowed to beat their wives. And I'm like, you are not a terribly, badly educated, backward person. You are, advanced, you're secular, this and that. But do you agree that if you get married, your husband has the right to beat you if you don't behave it. In the end, she was like, well, I mean, this is what our religion says. So
Wow.
in the end, he should have I mean, somebody has to correct me. And I was like, yeah, but who is going to correct him? Are you going to correct him? And then she's like, it's up to Allah to judge, not me. So this is what people accept because they
Yeah.
are indoctrinated with it. You know?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, that wouldn't work with me at all. That wouldn't work with me at all. I'd just end up dying probably.
I can imagine that, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like, there is this fundamental difference in viewing society and viewing genders and the role of the individual between a Western or even a Christian perspective and a Muslim perspective. And I feel like many people fail to see this.
Yeah. I think people aren't educated, and people are educated in like the Western version of Islam, which
Yeah.
is like a hijab, and that's about it.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like that's about it.
And even there, we have these interesting discussions of people arguing that the hijab is actually a liberating thing, which I mean,
Yeah, that never like worked for me. I heard that too in university too. It's like, no, people choose to wear it. It's liberating because then you don't get judged based on how you look. And I was like, just give me a break. That's not even a good argument. Like, no. I don't know what the response to that is. Just no. Anyway.
It's one thing to make the personal decision one day and to say, hey, you know what? I want to cover myself up just because I don't want to deal with people's opinions and all that. And then you go out and live your life that way. Okay, fine. But the hijab is not that. And the hijab is a compulsory veil commanded directly in the scripture that women must wear. And fundamentally, it was so that Muslim women are distinguished as the honorable women of the Muslims, as opposed to the dishonorable disbelievers and prostitutes and slaves. So that was the distinction there. It's not like you have a freedom there. You are supposed to wear it, and then afterward you make excuses about why it's actually a good thing. And that's not the way to go.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think I found interesting that where was I gonna go with this? No, we'll come back to it. I've forgotten. It was something Muhammad said. I'll remember.
You mean Muhammad hijab, you guessed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Muhammad hijab.
Okay, so we don't talk about the wrong people, because Muhammad is also the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, Muhammad hijab.
All right, moving on to the next one. We have only 2 left. Oh, here, speaking of Muhammad hijab. Here, Muhammad hijab with 581,000 subscribers says, I believe certain anti-Muslim women would wish they lived in the medieval period, a period where if a war was won by the opposing side, it was conventional that people could be taken as booty. Some historical accounts actually say some women would dress up for the captor.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. He like lives in the UK, right? Isn't he at Oxford?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't really know what to like. I don't even know what kind of response to have to that. I believe that some people, he would like. How does he know? Also, how does he know if he wouldn't even look at me during an interview?
Well, he believes. That's what he says. He believes.
Oh, he believes. Okay, well, that's probably accurate.
It's a very interesting thing. I mean, what he's basically saying is that anti-Muslim women, meaning by that he means people who criticize or don't like Islam or Muslims, I don't know, in the West, actually secretly want to be captured by Muslim warriors and be taken as, sex slaves. And
that's every woman's dream. When I grow up, I want to be a sex slave. Yep. Secret fantasies. Nope.
No, it's out. Everyone knows it. And finally related to that, a final clip, and then we can move on with our conversation. I just think this is a very interesting one, very relevant to Western society.
When Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, the Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they accept it, leave them. Khalas, they're Muslims, we go. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation, jizya. When enemy comes and attack your country, you don't fight. We Muslims protect you. But the ruling is for Sharia. So you do not open nightclubs, you do not fornicate in the streets, you do not, no, Sharia rules. If they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take where, because you refuse, I give you two good options. This is the strength of Islam. But nowadays, forget this. Maybe in the coming 40, 50 years, when the Muslims become strong as they're supposed to be.
Just
Yeah. If they refuse,
yeah.
he actually says something here.
Two good options. Two good options. You didn't go along with it. Yeah.
And the two good options are either listen to us and convert to Islam right now. Option number two is become our subjects and pay protection money. It's basically what gangs do, right? So you pay protection money to the Muslim forces, and then you live your life with their rules. If you don't pay, then you are fair game. But as long as you pay, then they will take care of protecting you and all that. But if you refuse that too, if you just want to go on with your freedoms, then give you two good options.
Two good options. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And here's one thing. He actually says something very important that you often hear and that some people perceive as fear-mongering or whatever you may call it. But what he's saying is, right now this doesn't work, but maybe in 40, 50 years, when the Muslims are strong, as they should be, then we can go out and start conquering neighboring people and, force them again to do these things.
Yeah.
Does this concern you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think that people, I think people in the West, I mean, maybe with what people have seen with Russia and Ukraine, maybe people are kind of getting the idea that conquering could still happen. I think people in the West believe that that's just what happened hundreds of years ago and doesn't happen anymore. And that's over. And it's not over for a lot of societies. I think probably for most societies other than Western society. And so we already saw what happened with Russia, which is they went into Ukraine and they've been, going into other lands, which is kind of the same idea. And it's like, well, how could somebody do that? It's like, well, they think completely differently than we do. And so, 40 to 50 years. And is that just calculated by the rate at which it's growing, mostly due to the fact that people in the West aren't having kids?
I mean, I guess what's, or the general view that people like him or even mainstream Muslim imams holds, or I mean, this was even common in my own family. My own parents taught me that we as Muslims were strong and we conquered the world and we're proud of that and happy. But then unfortunately, due to inner corruption and the West and this and that, we got defeated and slowed down in the last century. But soon our time will come and we will grow again. We will gather our strength and then we will start conquering the world again. And people will convert to Islam in masses because, we gave them two good options and they didn't accept. But this is generally what he and people like him think. You brought up a good point. It's that people in very comfortable societies like the West are not very much familiar with the realities of warfare and conquest and all that, because it looks like it's something of the past, because it didn't happen in recent times, in recent generations. The generation isn't familiar with this. But in Muslim societies, for example, people don't view it as a thing of the past, which is behind us and can't happen again. People view it as something that is supposed to happen again, soon-ish.
Soon-ish, yeah. Wow, that's wild. That's wild.
And I, for example, I grew up with the idea. So I grew up with this whole idea that that the world will probably come to an end soon. And before the world comes to an end, prophecies made by Muhammad will come true. They will happen. Some of them are that an Islamic equivalent of the Antichrist called the Dajjal will appear and come from the West or from East or whatever it is. And with him, the disbelievers and a large number of Jews will come and will attack the Muslims. And there is
Oh,
a
wow.
there is a clear report in which Muhammad says, before the hour is established, you will fight the Jews and you will kill every single one of them until some of them hide behind rocks and trees, and even the rocks and trees tell you there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. But only one tree, which is called the Gargat tree, will not give the Jews away because that tree is also one of them. This is a mainstream Muslim belief, attested, confirmed in the scripture, which Muhammad definitely said by Islamic standards. And I grew up learning that, and people still grow up learning that. People still believe in that stuff. So
Yeah, wow. I didn't know that there was that part written about Jews.
yeah,
I'm not familiar with that. Yeah.
I mean, it's something that's it's not even possible for me to make it up.
Yeah. And that's just, okay. I suppose I've heard from, I mean, it's a Christian belief that at some point the world is going to end. Jesus is going to come back. But I don't think there's a great battle where Christians kill everybody. Well, Jews mostly.
I hope not. I hope not.
Wild.
I mean, let's have a look at this so that people don't call me a liar later. Can you see this?
Yep.
So this is in one of the two major books of reports about Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad. And it says, Abu Hurairah reported Allah's messenger is saying, the last hour would not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews, and the Muslims would kill them.
Unless.
Yeah, it will not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews. So the last hour will only come after this happens.
Yeah.
This will
Okay.
definitely take place, and then the hour will come. And the
Oh my
Muslims
gosh.
would kill them until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree. And a stone or a tree would say, Muslim, or the servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. But the tree Gargat would not say, for it is the tree of the Jews.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that at all. That's scary too. The last hour would not come unless, which is
Yeah.
kind of encouraging, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
if you want the last hour to come, this is what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I learned this stuff when I was, I don't know, I have a memory of being in first or second grade as a little child, going to religious gatherings with my family. And one morning after the weekend, after a religious gathering, of hearing these things about stuff that's probably going to happen soon, I am at school in the morning talking to my little friend who's, I don't know, how old are you when you're in first or second grade?
Like 6 or 7.
Yeah, and I tell him about these things, and he's like, "Oh, really? Wow, I'm so scared. And, we need to warn others too about this. I mean, we are stupid little kids,
Yeah,
and we are
yeah.
being taught that we will fight the Jews. That is how we are programmed. We will fight them, and we will kill them, and then the hour will come. This will definitely happen. There's no way out."
That's crazy. So I've been doing a lot of like Bible reading, particularly since last August. And like I said earlier, I was kind of familiar with the biblical stories because of my dad, but I've actually gone through the text since last August. And my takeaway from most of it, it's the Old Testament and the New Testament, is that it basically teaches it teaches ways that I believe would improve your life. So whether or not you are a Christian or believe in God, it's some of the rules, which is kind of like, don't lie. Like, no matter what, don't lie. And, don't steal. And a lot of it's about not hurting other people, and that it's not your job to judge other people, that you should leave that up to God. And all of those lessons, I think, whether or not you believe in God or are religious, and like, I think those are good lessons to instill in people. So I think people, I'm probably more atheist types. There's a lot of judging the really religious Christians, like evangelical Christians online. It's like, what are they teaching their kids, that evolution doesn't exist and all this? And it's like, probably, yes, probably they are being taught that. But some of the other lessons that are like, don't lie, don't steal, love everybody. It's like, it's not that scary, right? It's kind of a hippie religion.
Yeah, I mean, my reaction is always when people tell me about how terrible Christianity is because, people learn, I don't know, about gender roles or that evolution is not true and things like this. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Give me a break. Okay, I get it. I get it, but I just have to compare things here. I come from a background where that stuff is very, very mild to me. And I sat down and read parts of the New Testament, much of it actually, and for most of it, from the very beginning, I felt like, wow, this is peaceful. This is new stuff. I read the Quran multiple times before, and I thought, this appeals to something very good in me, of loving and forgiveness and accepting, also repentance, and also aspects that I don't agree with. Some of them, like, I don't know, I feel like it has too much of a sense of self-humiliation more than humility, and I think that some aspects of it may be too judgmental of humans and human behavior. But then again, it teaches a lot of values that contribute to a good life, whether I believe in this or not. That's the reality. When I compare this to other religions, though, it's very hard to say that all religions have these very good aspects, and that all religions have good aspects that overshadow the bad sides. I mean, with a religion like Islam, for example, you don't just learn to love and to forgive and to accept. You learn to judge and to hate and to fight. And this is not what I'm saying. This is evidently, as you can see, what these people are saying. And
Yeah, it's dangerous.
it is pretty bad. So yeah, I think I was very upfront with you about how I wanted to talk to you about these things, about our perspective on the whole Islamic issue, about the presence of ex-Muslims, which I think this is something that as ex-Muslims, we don't find enough support and solidarity from people in the West, neither from the progressive leftists, because they are kind of afraid of the backlash from Muslims, and they confuse our existence with this stereotypical right-wing propaganda. And we also don't find it very much from the conservative or classical liberal people, because again, for various different reasons. I have no idea why. But
It might be, it's probably the same reasons. It's fear of backlash, and then a big one would probably just not being familiar. Like, I'd never heard of pretty much anything that you just showed me. Well, now I know, right? But so it's probably just not being educated, and then fear of backlash, and probably being open to ideas, right? Because it's good to be open. So you're like, well, can't all be bad, right? And or maybe I'm misunderstanding parts of it. Like, that's probably what my view has been for most of it. Is like, maybe I'm missing something. I hear all these negative things, particularly about women's rights. Maybe I'm missing something because I haven't read the Quran. I don't know who I'm listening to.
I would always suggest reading the Quran and getting your own impression of it. I always suggest doing it. As a complete opponent of the Quran and of Islam, I say the best thing that you could do is to read the Quran. You don't even need my input. You will see what I'm talking about. But after our conversation, after everything you've seen today, how do you feel? Do you now feel closer to converting to Islam, or?
No, you're definitely not working in Islam's favor. I can tell you that much. Although I wasn't close before. but no.
Yeah.
You must
Yeah.
get a lot of hate online.
Oh, I do. I get death threats
Yeah, that's
all the time.
yeah, that's scary.
I recently started a cartoon, actually. That's the first time that a cartoon series exists. I just started a cartoon series called The Prophet Tales, where through cartoon, through art, and through humor, I and a friend are telling the story of Muhammad and the things that he said and did. You should really check that out. I think I will that will grow and will get much bigger. Uh, I would say I really appreciate you coming here. And I think I would really appreciate it if you became uh, an ally of sorts. I don't want to drag you into any fights or anything, but if people like you could give ex-Muslims and critics of Islam, people who speak from the other perspective, who are not heard very much, a voice, if you can show some solidarity and some help. And you have already done that with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, which I think was very significant and very great. I think lots of people would appreciate this, because I come from a world, and many people that I know come from a world where we don't have a voice. We cannot speak out. We are in constant danger. And the funny and ironic and tragic thing is, we come from the Muslim world, from countries where we are threatened with death and violence and all that. Then we come to the West to find, freedom and all that here. And suddenly in the West, we see everyone saying, "Hey, Islam is a beautiful religion. Hey, don't be a bigot. Hey, don't do this, don't do that." And we are like, what the hell is going on?
Oh yeah. No, that's interesting. I think before I go, what made you decide to kind of pursue telling people about Islam kind of full time?
Well, I started at some point. I went online when I was, after I stopped believing in Islam, and looked for answers and for voices online. And I mostly saw this whole new atheist community of people in the West just criticizing Christianity, and there wasn't much being said about Islam. And even when there was something about Islam, it was mostly misinformation. There weren't many people, speaking in detail about Islam. And I have a past where I tried to practice Islam and study Islam for many years. I thought, I know something. I would like to go out and give people accurate information and counter Muslim apologists and preachers, counter leftists who defend Islam ignorantly, and also counter those who spread different sorts of misinformation. I started doing this. It quickly spread, and then I thought, okay, this works, and I feel very passionate about this. I need to focus on this. I need to do this, because I know I have suffered from Islam growing up in a very religious family, and I know people who suffered much worse. My experience is nothing in comparison to theirs. I know people who fled their families and their countries, whose parents want to kill them, who are under a death sentence and decades of prison sentences and things like that. All of that due to Islam, not due to some radicals or extremists or whatever you call it. This is a serious problem, a serious humanitarian problem, and people don't want to hear it. People don't hear it because Islam is dominant in that culture. And here, people just care about Islam as a minority, which must be protected or feared. And that's where I feel like people like me need to come in and tell people the truth. And we need as much help as possible to get the truth out there to everybody. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me on. That was very interesting. And I probably will read the Quran. Like I said, I had started at an early university, and I read a whole bunch of it. But I didn't get through it for sure. Just like I never got through the Bible until this year. But that's probably a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely suggest it. Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you responding well to this and coming on here. It was a lot of fun going through these things. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate who you are. Anything else that you want to add, want to say? Anything you want to plug it, go ahead.
I don't think so. I don't think so. That was good. I mean, if anybody is watching, if anybody who's watching is interested in my podcast, they can just look up Michaela Peterson podcast. That's pretty easy. But yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you very much again for the invite and following up, even though I was sick for a very long time.
No problems. What matters
thank
is that
you.
you're here in the end. And I hope to keep in touch and to talk to you again in the future at some point. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for watching. Thank you, Michaela. Have a fantastic day, everybody. And as I always say, stay away from us.